Well, hey, you're watching What Was That About? Thank you for joining us for today's episode. My name is Moses Khan. I am with Dr. Tony Soldano, lead pastor of All People's Church here in Brampton, Canada. Pastor, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Doing well.
I'm trying not to breathe because when I breathe into the mic, our producer gives me problems. So I'm trying to not breathe.
Pastor is what we call a heavy breather. Yeah, we're always getting
Wow.
pokes from our producer over there behind the camera. Yeah.
She's a bit of a bully. But anyway, that's another program.
That's another problem. Yeah, another program. Well, listen, we want to thank you for joining us for today's episode. I want to talk about sacredness. Sacredness, not a word you hear quite often, quite frequently.
Yeah.
The sacred, and we've, I think, live in a society where, man, the agenda is probably to get rid of the sacred. And you and I were having a conversation, and you'd mentioned this quote, which I thought was profound. And you had said that sacredness is being removed from the hearts of people. Sacredness is being removed from the hearts of people. What does that mean?
So I want to be clear. I actually heard a senator,
Okay.
a retired senator now, and she was giving a speech. And she made this comment. And I quote, she said, my concern is that we are removing the sacred from the heart.
Wow.
And so really what she was talking about was faith and values and all that's really connected to God.
Yeah.
And, when we talk about the sacred, what are we saying? The holy, the things that are reverenced. And why is that important? Because that's where we get our values, our standards, our belief systems. And her, perspective, brilliant woman, by the way, was this is being chipped away at, it's being removed. And ultimately, when you remove something from the heart, which is the core of someone, their central belief system and place, then it's no holds bar.
Right.
Then nothing is untouchable. Everything is, able to be questioned and challenged. And, this is really the day we're living in.
Right. Yeah. So true. And so when we look at, sacredness being removed from society, it really is a byproduct of sacredness being removed from the hearts of people. And I like what you said about, values and morality and those kinds of things, because we forget where those things come from.
Yeah.
This idea of morality and values and dignity, these aren't just concepts we accidentally stumbled into. You know what I mean? We live in a society, whether people want to accept this or not, that is based on biblical truths. And those are the things that provide morality and value for us. And so if you begin to remove sacredness, you are going to slowly get rid of values. You're going to slowly get rid of morality. And then you're going to actually have to ask the question, well, where does your morality come from?
Yeah.
Where does your morality come from? Where do these values come from?
Yeah, and you know what? You're actually seeing it today, and it's what's called the morality by the mob. And I'm not talking about the mafia. I'm talking about the masses, the mob mentality.
Yeah.
What people then either believe to be the right thing. Well, how do they believe that? It's because it's just drilled into your skull, into your brain, through various messages. It's usually politicized. It's very controversial. And then what happens is you have this silent majority that don't actually believe what's going on. Remember we talked about that comment, that man that said to you, the world really needs Jesus, right? Like people know something's wrong, something is off. The minute they express anything, there's some kind of, they're labeled as some kind of phobic, right? And you're against, because you have any kind of belief system, you're against something.
Yeah.
But what people are really identifying is this very thing.
Right.
Sacredness is being removed from the heart.
Right.
Value, holiness, the things that were, that were given to God, if you will. This is the territories given to God. We don't question these things because they are, for example, the 10 Commandments, they're written in stone.
Right.
You won't lie, you won't steal, you won't kill. But it wouldn't take long And it's not taking long for those things to be erased. Like,
Right.
not that this is about abortion, but thou shalt not kill covers that, doesn't it?
Right. Yeah.
But that has been removed. And so
Right.
little by little, Pastor Moses, you got this chipping away.
Yeah.
And then it's the mob. And usually the loudest, the most obnoxious, the most sensitive, the most offended, these are the people then that rule the day.
Yeah.
While the silent majority just kind of trudge along
Right.
without wanting to upset anybody.
Yeah.
It's actually, I think it's a form of insanity,
Yeah. Wow.
honestly.
Wow. And then you had made a comment just on Sunday there about California wanting to ban the Bible.
Yes.
Yeah. That's fascinating. And so they want to continue to push.
Because so let's be
Yeah.
clear. So why do they want to ban the Bible amongst other books, by the way? Because it's anti-gay.
Got
So
it.
it teaches, it teaches against homosexuality. It teaches against, multiple genders, and so we have to get rid of it. Now,
Right.
they didn't mention the Quran. They didn't mention other books, but of course the Bible gets in there, right? The
Yeah.
Bible is the most hated book because God inspired it.
So true. So
Yeah.
true. I saw this I think it was an article or something about some ad campaign that was running in India that had highlighted some story of some boy who became or a man that became a woman, and then his family kind of shunned him, and then I guess later became a woman, so shunned her, and then the ad was basically about how this family and this now woman come back together and they're reunited and whatnot. But a very, very large percent of the population is wanting to boycott this ad. And one of the questions they asked, this was very interesting, is how come Muslim names are never used? How come?
Wow.
How come Muslims? So I guess they were using the names and they were like Hindu names or whatever, and so they asked the question, how come Muslim names are never used?
Right.
Which, to your point, they always want to attack Christianity. They always want to attack the Bible. They never want to speak against the Quran or Islam because they know that they're going to get pushback, and that pushback can be violent.
Right. And they're politically protected, even in our society.
Yeah.
Because there's, here's what's interesting as well, Pastor Moses. It's like when you remove the sacred,
Right.
there's this phenomenon in not only in Canada, but in America.
Yeah.
This like self-hatred.
Right.
Right. Like you said, foundationally, it's based on Judeo-Christian values. And we seem now as a society to love everything but that.
Right.
Everything but what brought the blessing of God, the prosperity of God. We want to accept everything except for the very foundational things, of the sacredness of God. And I thought about this. It's like, you can only spit in God's face so many times before, he wipes his eyes and then he responds. And so you remove it from the heart. We've seen even in our own government that is now, the coat of arms and the crown, the whole idea of the defender of the faith. We saw that it
Right.
started with the new king there and, Charles, and that ought to be a program on its own because he's just as anti-God, as globalist as you can get. And, it starts with the removing of,
Right.
let's change the cross with a snowflake.
Right.
And so they test and they push and they test and they push. And when there is no pushback and when there is no, no cry of the people, then they go, aha. And they just take more ground. They take more ground. They take more ground. I mean, we even had, we just celebrated Mother's Day. We had organizations in the United States that, now want to remove Mother's Day. It's, all this, get rid of mother, father,
Wow.
you're a parenting person, you're a breastfeeding, whatever the nonsense that they come up with. But at first people are like, oh, this is ridiculous.
Right.
But it started with Christmas.
Yep.
And here again, little by little, they just chip. And then before you know it, if you're not adhering to them, you feel bad by saying Merry Christmas or Happy Mother's Day. You've offended people. And yet it's been around like forever.
Right.
And now it's a It's a new day.
Yeah.
It's a new day. And it's all connected to the removal of the sacred. And honestly, I think it makes people go crazy
Mm-hmm.
because there are no limits.
Right.
Where does it end, Pastor
Yeah, it
Moses?
doesn't.
Like I put this on Facebook, and because I think people don't think down the road. And I made this statement. So let's go back to the sacred,
Mm-hmm.
right? Right now, there is a push to convince society to deny basic biology,
Right.
that men are men
Yeah.
and women are women.
Right.
We have people that are saying that men can have babies and men can menstruate and men are women because they feel they are. And then you've got political people that rally and change laws and literally trying to tell you deny basic biology.
Yeah.
So if you do that, let me ask you the question. Where does it end?
Right.
What else can you say no to?
Yeah.
What else can come down the path?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, it really is endless, and then evil really will be allowed to run free, and the Bible talks about that. The Bible talks about evil having its day, but it's like, here's what they don't here's what people in authority in our world, especially in the North American world, don't understand is exactly what you're saying. Once you open the door, it's like stupidity is just going to run wild. And you're going to have no basis to tell them no in the future because of all of the doors you've already opened for them that deny logic, science, biology, and the rest of it. So it's like, well, you let us do that, so why can't we do this?
Right.
Right?
Right.
And it's like there is no end to it.
And we're seeing something in the West Coast, in particular, California,
Yeah.
Vancouver, where you have these tent cities that are rising up in the middle of the streets. Basically, these are drug addicts that the government, in their wisdom,
Right.
is saying, what you need is more drugs.
Right.
You need safe places. Well, what happens? It reminds me, I don't know if you've ever read the book, The Lord of the Flies. Somewhere there will be some sort of rule. There will be some sort of authority.
Right.
But it's based on anarchy. It's based on violence. And
Yeah.
in these tent cities, whatever, there is crime. There is sexual abuse. There is violence.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a world unto its own.
Right.
It's like Mad Max all over again.
Max, yeah.
It's not that there isn't rule. It's that the rule that is there becomes ungodly, unmanageable.
Yeah.
Humans become the nastiest
Right.
to other humans when you don't have the sacred. And we can look at this, Pastor Moses, through all kinds of empires and societies that just were absolutely inhumane
Right.
and cruel. And you know where it all starts? Remove God.
Yeah.
Remove the sacred.
Yeah.
Remove the laws of God because we are smart enough to rule ourselves.
Right.
Clearly we're not.
Yeah.
Clearly we're
No.
not. And going back to your question, then where do you get your morality? Who creates it?
Right. And this is where they have such a double standard, right? It's you want to get rid of the thing that actually allowed our society to flourish and give it values and morality. You want to push that out, and then it's like you become your own God, you become your own king, and exactly what you're saying will happen because eventually someone's going to rise up and they're going to want to take control of the situation. And it's like all the evil that is in their heart and in the heart of humanity is going to play out, which is why the Bible is so incredibly important because the Bible says, no, what humanity needs is not an earthly king, but a heavenly king. One who knows right from wrong, one who is completely just, who is completely sinless, who can actually lead you and guide you, and so that you can flourish as a humanity, so that you can know your God and you can actually reflect your Creator, right? And so it's like when going through even this series of the Holy Spirit, talking about, from chaos to order. And it's like when humanity is in charge, the opposite happens. You move away from the order of God and you go into the chaos of what is actually in the hearts of humanity. And so this is why when Jesus came, he's like, there's a kingdom, and the kingdom has a king.
Yes.
And you're going to have to learn to submit to that, but it's the best thing for you.
Yes.
It's actually the best thing for you, for society, for the world. It's how you can actually thrive.
Yes. Isn't it amazing that, what God says about the heart, that it's evil
Yeah.
and desperately wicked.
Wicked, yeah.
But you go speak to the average person, they'll tell you, people are generally good
Right.
with a few bad apples.
Yeah.
You know what God says? People are generally bad
Right.
with some good in them because they haven't totally fallen into depravity.
Yeah.
The only good that we're capable of is because we're made in the image of God.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like you're saying, left to ourselves, right? Human beings will always look to dominate,
Yeah.
enslave. You look at the crisis and the catastrophe that is happening down at the southern border of America, where you have people that are, they're leaving whatever they have for freedom and a better life, and they're being sold, they're being molested, they're being raped, they're being sold, sold into a human traffic. I mean, it is, who is taking advantage of those people?
Right.
And it's generally always about what little money. You think those people are coming for nothing? They are paying people to get them there that are taking advantage
Yeah.
of them. It is an atrocity.
Yep.
That is humanity.
That's it.
That's the face. That's the heart of humanity. When you remove God, that's what you're going to be left with.
Yeah.
But you see, we have this idea that, intellectualism and humanism will rise and that people will do the right thing. People never do the right thing. Never.
Yeah.
It's always about domination.
Right. It is. I was remembering this as you were speaking, this talking, I forget who it was, but there was this, Speaker Duna talking, there was some Q&As happening. And so one of the people of the audience asked the question, because the speaker, believed in what we believe in, which is that we're all born in sin, that humanity in their hearts are wicked and not good. And so he was challenging what the speaker had said, and that humanity is good and all of this other stuff. And the speaker had said to him, well, then why do you lock your door at night?
Yeah.
Right? Why do you lock your door at night? And so that's the reality. The reality is if you let the human heart lead without God, without the instructions of God, it's going to go into a desperately wicked and evil place. But the Bible has a solution.
Yeah.
And God has a solution,
Yep.
and the solution is himself.
And Pastor Mo, when Paul talks about the fruit of the Spirit,
Yeah.
right? Do you know what he says? He says, against such there is no law.
There's no law. Yeah.
You don't have to create laws about love and
That's right.
peace and,
Yeah.
and gentleness and long suffering. You don't have to create laws around that.
Right.
Because it's self-governing.
Yeah.
It does the right thing. It transforms the heart. And that's what our message is about. You don't have to make laws about
Right.
stuff like that.
Yeah. So true.
God knows what he's talking
God
about.
knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I hope you got something out of this conversation. There's so much more that we can say. But if you enjoyed something, leave it in the comments. Let us know what you enjoyed about today's episode. I don't know. Let us know what you think of where society is. Has sacredness been removed from the heart, and what are the consequences of it? Pastor Tony, thank you for your wisdom, this conversation.
Thank you, sir.
And listen, we love you. Remember to subscribe, to comment, to share, all that good stuff. We appreciate this video podcast going to as many people as we possibly can. We'll see you on the next episode. God bless.